Welcome to the Beyond Nen movie. We have a lot to dive into today. We'll be going through a few categories, such as exploration, progression, boss fights, Nen abilities, Nen progression, hunter exams, as well as some new weapons. Are you ready? Alright, let's get into it. Exploration. As we all know, the Hunter x Hunter world is truly vast, going from common towns that yield the start of new adventures and friendships to dangerous territories that are filled with restless Nen beasts as well as skilled enemies. Beyond Nen has no shortage of that when it comes to a variety of scenery, going from damp, murky swamps to mystical and bewildering caves, as well as whole new terrains that bring forth certain disadvantages. Hopefully, you will have the time of your life exploring Beyond Nen. Progression. One question that we always get from our community is, how will this game combine the world of Hunter x Hunter into an RPG game? Well, now we have your answers. Firstly, we have a magnitude of different types of enemies that the players will be able to encounter. We want players to feel like there's somewhat of a challenge whenever they face new enemies. Not only will they be going up against new NPCs on each and different island, they'll also go up against NPCs with varying fighting styles. In Beyond Nen, enemy combatants will not only fight back, but they'll feint, parry, perfect dodge, counter, as well as generate their own combos whilst in the midst of battle, hopefully giving you the experience as close to it can be against real players. But before we move on, as we already know, the world of Beyond Nen is vast and has a lot to offer, which means there has to be different ways to get to all these different islands and locations, such as vehicles. However, traveling from island to island will require boats as well as a strong will to reach each and every destination. Here's a tip from your narrator, by the way. Do not get lost at sea. But as you reach these different locations, you'll find particular items, especially from chests, which will give you different Nen artifacts, armors, weapons, and crafting materials. But there's still way more we have to talk about, so let's continue on. Secondly, when it comes to progression, we want to dive into acquiring quests. In Beyond Nen, quests are not all simple. Some are actually multi-layered. Here's an example. This quest here requires you to craft a key. Then, once you insert the key into said door, it will enter a timed event, where you have to rescue hostages. In these quests, we try to give players things that they can interact with to aid in their quest. And at the end of the quest, there are usually events lurking around, like spawning in a boss that they have to defeat. Now, this part here is mostly for the combat enjoyers, and personally, my favorite part of Beyond Nen. We wanted to reward those who strive in being the exception in combat. So, we added a bounty system. When you eliminate a player, you acquire something called a bounty tag, which varies in value depending on how high the player's reputation is. Another thing to our bounty system is that it requires you to be a hunter, in which you will need to scan your hunter's license to be allowed in the bounty shop, where then you can turn in your bounty tag and get rewarded with money, XP, and a variety of bounty exclusive artifacts, weapons, and armor. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, that's really cool, that's sick. That's amazing, actually. Now, after hearing all this talk about our crafting system, I bet you are wondering how it works and how it affects gameplay. Well, here's the quick rundown. Crafting is very pivotal to your experience in the world of Beyond Nen. Firstly, you'll want to acquire the recipe of whatever it is you want to craft, which can be gained from stuff like chests, bounty drops, and hell, even killing random NPCs. Then, after you've acquired said blueprints and recipes for crafting, you go to the blacksmith, follow a specific order of said recipe, and input the materials needed. You can also craft Nen artifacts, armors, weapons, etc., etc. Some enemies, especially bosses, drop materials like their boss's core, which help craft certain weapons and armors that you can wield. But not to worry about just that. You can also craft different things. Currently, we're working on adding mining into the game as a way to process materials and possibly acquire some materials that you'll be able to sell. Now, before we move on to Nen, we wanted to show you all just how elite our bosses are. The development team says that each boss is so strong that we recommend players to fight all 10 of our bosses with a group of friends, just so that they stand a chance. Or, do you think that you're the exception? In that case, show us what you're made of. Nen Abilities. Before we get into acquiring Nen, we want to show you guys what you've all been waiting for. Nen Abilities. Here's some showcases of some of the Nen abilities that are going to be on release. Mind you, there are 15 total abilities, with a strong possibility of there being more on release. Quick little rundown on Rising Sun. It can only be used when you're below 50% of your total HP. The lower you are, the more damage your moves will do. So get close to your enemies to make sure they feel the burn. Oh, in case you haven't noticed, we also have our Hero Kite's abilities in here as well. You'll need a great deal of skill and luck if you want to master this ability. Every time you spin, you'll get a random weapon, meaning you must master each and every weapon that this ability has to offer, in order to know how to use them properly in any given situation, no matter what weapon you may or may not get. We hope you guys like these abilities and are willing to try out our other abilities and gain experience with those as well. Now then, let's talk about acquiring Nen. This process takes two actions, unlocking Nen and then activating it. Unlocking Nen can vary in length since there are at least 3 ways to unlock Nen. One of them only requires you to become a hunter, which we personally at the development team think is the best. The rest of it, we'll let you guys figure it out. But what we can show you all is how to activate Nen. Activating Nen will require you to first, obviously, unlock Nen. Then afterwards, you'll go to Wayfarer's Point, in which you'll talk to Rohan. After you talk to Rohan, he'll teach you and guide you so you can make full use of your Nen. There are also 3 skill trees you unlock after acquiring Nen, and they are your Nen Techniques, Nen Ability, and Nen Skills. Each function in different ways for your build. To unlock all of your Nen Techniques, you'll need to do a series of meditation to reach the requirements of each Nen Technique. Oh, and you'll also need to have the right amount into each Nen stat as well. And while we're here, I'll quickly go over what each Nen technique does. 10. 10 slightly buffs your stamina, defense, and damage. It's a good modifier overall if you want a quick boost in battle. Ken. Ken buffs solely your damage. Great for stalling out bosses for your teammates. Zetsu. Zetsu hides your aura, making you invisible to others that aren't using Gyo or don't have Nen. Gyo. It puts Nen over your eyes, allowing you to see those in Zetsu, as well as seeing items covered in Nen. Ko. Ko puts all of your energy into your fists, increasing your M1 damage immensely, but I should also mention that it debuffs your defense by quite a lot as well. Ryu. Ryu has 2 parts to it, an offensive part and a defensive part. Offensive Ryu puts your aura in both of your arms, increasing your M1 damage immensely. However, it's not as much as Ko. But on the upsides, you don't take as much damage as you would if you were in Ko as well. The defensive side of Ryu covers an aura all around you, increasing your defense by a great amount, but also decreasing your damage as well. Shu. Shu allows you to put your Nen on your weapons, increasing their damage. Weapon mains? This one's for you. Last but not least, we have En. En allows you to see those around you through walls, even if they're in Zetsu. But the more mastery you have in your Nen, the more you'll be able to see with En, eventually getting to the point where you can see stats of everyone around you. These different techniques give you many edge in battles, so make full mastery of each and every one of them to make yourself a true master of Nen. Nen skills. These are very important. They're based on your Nen affinity. For example, if you're an enhancer, you can unlock 100% of enhancement. However, you'll only be able to unlock 80% of admission and transmutation. The amount of the other ones decrease even more. Nen skills have 2 functions. Skills pertain to the Nen affinity that they reside in, and then tools for battle and utility. I should also mention that depending on your Nen affinity and your Nen ability, you'll need more mastery in order to use certain skills. A good example for this is if you're using Jajanken, in order to learn paper, you'll need both mastery and enhancement and emission to use it. And last but not least, Nen abilities. They're quite self-explanatory. They're based off the Nen affinity that you acquire. All you need to do is unlock their skills. Simple, right? Getting skill points and stat requirements for each skill, as well as making sure that you have the right affinity mastery for it as well. And now, onto the hunter exams. Being a hunter is a major part of progression in the game. It allows you to go past the level cap. It also gives you access to doing bounties, entering certain hunter exclusive locations, and even unlocking Nen. The first stage of the hunter exams is pretty easy. Most of it is about persistence and dedication. For 10 minutes, players will run into a falling apart tunnel that drops parts of them which deal damage and take a portion of their HP. But not only that, it'll also reduce their speed. This stage takes a chunk out of a player's stamina, meaning they'll have to run for long periods of time, and if they don't have enough stamina, they will run out of battery, and will have to wait for some time for it to regenerate. Maybe that'll be a good time to sabotage them. Who knows? Moving on to the second stage, it takes place in the Trick Tower. The Trick Tower is a maze, one that has many dead ends and traps that you'll encounter. But as long as you find the right path, you will see the door that leads to the next part of the Trick Tower, which is where you must fight a prisoner, just like that one famous scene in the Hunter x Hunter anime. If you lose, you'll be eliminated, but if you defeat the prisoner, you'll move on to the next stage. Now, here at the third stage, this is where things get crazy. Unlike the first and second stages where everyone can pass, the third stage requires you to eliminate a player. In this stage here, everyone gets a tag, and their objective is to get 2 tags. It doesn't matter what kind of tags you get, as long as you have 2. You must have 2 tags when the timer runs out. People can also try to get every tag, much like a certain someone in the Hunter x Hunter series, and win the whole Hunter exams right then and there. But surely no one's brave enough to try something like that, right?
Right.
Lastly is the fourth stage, which is a tournament-style stage. This stage decides whether or not you become a hunter. You'll be matched up to fight against someone random in the stands, and if you defeat them, you'll pass the fourth stage. However, if you lose now, not only will you suffer a crushing defeat, but you'll also ultimately fail the hunter exams. And last but surely not least, we wanted to give you a sneak peek at some of the new weapons that we've been working on here in Beyond Nen, as there are at least 23 weapons ready for release. Let's take a look at 2 of them, the Ice Daggers and the Frostblade Boots. So, what do you guys think? Personally, I think the Frostblade Boots are my favorite of the 2, but you guys can let us know in the comments. Which one do you guys prefer? The Ice Daggers or the Frostblade Boots? Alright, is that the last of it? Well, since that concludes the movie, we hope you guys really liked the movie. I want everyone to know that we have been working hard and tirelessly to make sure that this has come out on time. We've changed and improved a lot, and we will continue to do so up until release. We are also working on updates so we can try to do weekly or even bi-weekly updates if possible. And just so you guys know, what I just said was from the owner, Decay himself.
Thank you.
Now, I just want to make a quick shout out to everyone that helped make this movie possible. Big shout out to Decay, the man himself, the owner, the man who's been working behind the scenes tirelessly to make sure this movie gets out to you guys. Big shout out to his developers as well. Things would not have made it this far without them. Kinks, Erg, Leyland, Rick, Jack, Dre, Unknown, Moon, Polar. You guys are great, bro. Keep up the good work. I cannot wait to see what Beyond Nen looks like as a finished product. And a big thank you to the GOAT, Sprint, for editing this amazing movie, bro. Give it up to that guy, bro. The effects on this was crazy, bro. Crazy. But yeah, Decay and his developers have been grinding for the past couple of months to make sure that this game is where it is at now. So I just want everyone to keep in mind this movie is still a little bit old, and we're still adding, improving, and getting new things out. And I also want to make this known that this is not the only video. We still got 2 more devlogs that will probably come. And as well, you can also expect a release trailer and a release teaser, which will both be on release week, I'm pretty sure. And as for release, the Beyond Nen release is going to be this summer. As long as things roll as smoothly as they are rolling right now, this summer is when Beyond Nen will drop. If testers and content creators approve of how things work right now, the game will be releasing this July. Now, do not mark our words on this, because I want to make it very clear everything is subject to change. You know, you never know what bumps you might walk into in the road. So all we're asking is that you guys continue to have as much patience with us as you have had for these past couple of years. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'm hoping to see you guys in our Discord, which is at discord.gg/beyondnen. I hope to see you guys there, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Peace.